Hey y'all, thanks for stopping in. So, I've been talking about this migrant situation in New York for a couple weeks now. And what we know is basically these criminal migrants are going to be getting prepaid credit cards essentially funded by the taxpayers in the state of New York. And what we know so far is that basically New York is being overrun. They've had to cancel soccer games from high schools, they've had to cancel actual high school all to house these migrants. Meanwhile, they're also staying in the nicest hotels. Basically, government paying these hotels every night for some of the nicest rooms to host, you know, criminal migrants that broke into the country. Then they went and created a program that created reloadable debit cards, essentially. Debit cards that people can get without an ID. Then I saw this story and I had to wonder, if one of these migrants in New York gets a debit card and then moves to Kansas City at the Kansas City mayor's request, will they still be able to use that debit card that's funded by the New York City taxpayers, even though they live in Missouri now? And additionally, is Missouri going to create their own program to give free money, debit cards, essentially, to the illegal migrants once they get to their state? I got this one from Bloomberg. New York City migrants are being welcomed by Kansas City's mayor to fill jobs. Mayor Quentin Lucas seeks to attract those that have newly arrived to the U.S. to fill jobs in the expanding region. Well, being a person that's from the Kansas City area, on the Kansas side at least, I can tell you there's plenty of people in the area to fill the jobs. And if they're not applying for those jobs, there's a reason. That reason would be the jobs aren't offering to pay enough money. It's simple. But whenever you have a mayor of a city invite criminal migrants to your city, people that broke into the country illegally, to then fill those jobs at the rates that the companies were offering, is a drag on society. Local people would go and take those jobs if the positions offered enough to where people could actually pay their bills. It's how an economy works. If you're offering a position and nobody wants it, you have to offer more money. Because we all know living today in America is pretty expensive. Rent, groceries, gas, travel, etc., you name it. It's all expensive, way more expensive than it used to be. So people need jobs, people need to work. But if they're going to spend their life doing that job, they need to make enough money to pay their bills. They're not going to go take a job and then still end up short at the end of the month. Nobody wants to accept a job and then still be lacking at the end of the month. Yeah, sure, I understand living paycheck to paycheck and things like that. But the point is, the goal is to be able to cover your bills, to pay your rent, ultimately get out of renting and have a mortgage, buy a house, which a lot of people can't even do that, let alone pay for groceries, and Lord forbid have enough remaining to actually go and have some fun with your friends or do some type of hobby, right? But when you have a mayor like this who says, oh, we have all these jobs that these migrants can work, that continues to keep the wages low, which isn't good for the migrants, and it's certainly not good for the people who voted for you in the city that you serve. But let's check this article out. The mayor of Kansas City has a message for migrants eager to leave New York City's shelters. Come find a job here. Construction and manufacturing are booming in the metro area of 2.2 million people, which includes portions of Missouri and Kansas. Building a battery plant for Panasonic Holdings Corp. will require 2,000 workers. A representative for the local union council estimated the Meta Platform Inc. and Alphabet Inc. are spending almost $2 billion combined on new facilities in the region. In the past 5 years, companies have announced $9 billion of investments, according to a local development group. And apparently they want to just go ahead and staff it with a bunch of illegals that don't speak English. They want to move to Kansas City, build a bunch of stuff, and invest in the infrastructure and essentially run it with migrants. It's just ridiculous. Companies have announced $9 billion of investments, and they're going to try to hire criminal migrants. They're not going to try to hire the best of the best. Kansas City is surrounded by 3 pretty decent colleges. You have University of Missouri, you have Kansas University, KU, and you have K-State, Kansas State, all within about a 3-hour drive of Kansas City. You have, like it says here, 2.2 million people that live in the Kansas City metro area, yet you want to try to import migrants because the people, those 2.2 million, don't want to take the jobs. Well, it's very obvious to me the jobs do not offer enough for people to survive or people to feel that it's worth it. What this mayor needs to do is make sure that migrants aren't coming to the state and taking these jobs up from locals who need these jobs to actually pay more. You think any of that would be you think they would consider some of that to be in the people of the city, of the town that you're moving to, not just we're going to take advantage of the landscape and hire criminal migrants to staff it to sell you guys batteries at full price, right? It's not like they're going to staff it with low, it's not like it's going to help keep the prices down. But Kansas City Mayor Quentin Lucas has a hunch that migrants with work permits could help alleviate the labor shortage that is built up as the city posts some of the region's fastest economic growth. That could also help ease the burden of cities like New York that have struggled to provide housing and support for unprecedented influx of new arrivals, many of them asylum seekers from Latin America. Kansas City's economy is particularly attractive for blue-collar workers, with an industrial base anchored by plants for Ford Motor Company and General Motors, and a big food manufacturing industry amid the construction boom. More than 70% of contractors in Missouri and Kansas say they can't find enough workers. So while there's a construction boom, that means the companies are doing well, but they can't find enough workers because they're not offering enough pay. It's pretty simple in my opinion. But let's continue. We need a lot more employees, Luke. If there are people who are willing and ready to work, then I believe that there could be a place for them. And this reminds me of another thing. It is my theory that the path to getting illegal criminal migrants voting is to put them on work permits. You get these people an ID, you get them a work permit, suddenly they have a residence, and the liberal Democrats have an excuse to say, look, this person is living here, they're working here, why do they not deserve the right to vote? And then that's it. Everybody that says illegals don't vote in our elections, even though they already, through the census, add electoral votes due to the population to certain states. And that's another thing here. Kansas City, Kansas and Missouri are both essentially turning blue. The older I get, I grew up there on the Kansas side, and it was traditionally a Republican state, and Missouri was traditionally a Democrat state. Well, it seems like Missouri has turned red, and Kansas is actually turning blue, but they've always had a Democrat mayor in Kansas City, Missouri. But I can tell all the local folks there that are Republicans, if you don't want your state to turn blue, you need to reject the importation of any of these migrants. You're only 10, 12 hours straight north up I-35 from the literal Mexican border. Half a day they can be in your neighborhood. That's coming from Mexico. That's not even coming from New York. In my opinion, the last thing you want to do is say, hey, come here, because then they're going to start flooding in from New York. They're going to come down from Chicago. They're going to come up from Mexico, and then that's it. But let's continue here. To be sure, Lucas envisions the migrants needing extra help getting settled, of course. So yeah, they are looking into incentive programs. They're going to get their own debit card or whatever. Let's figure it out. The city is looking at ways it can provide housing and other support, including training and language services. The 2024 through 2025 budget earmarked $1 million for short-term rehousing, healthcare, and job training programs for refugees and migrants. It's word salad. Migrants who apply for asylum are typically eligible to receive work authorization 180 days after filing for legal status. Another option open to arrivals from some countries, including Venezuela, is to apply for temporary protected status. New York City says almost 190,000 migrants have come through its intake system since early 2022, while Denver reports about 41,000 such arrivals. Denver Mayor Mike Johnston said that when migrants get work permits, they're instantly in demand. As soon as we can get folks work authorized, it turns from a crisis into an opportunity, Johnston said. The conversations I have with newcomers who say all they want is a job, I get the same calls all day long from business leaders who say, I have open jobs we can't fill. Can I please hire the folks that have arrived? Of course, right? These people are trying to undercut Americans and hire illegals. It's not a new thing. It's just now it's being facilitated and assisted by the government, by local governments, by federal governments. And of course, if you're a greedy business owner, you don't have any principles and all you care about is money, yeah, you're going to try to hire the cheapest labor out there. You're not going to offer a real living wage to match 2024. You're going to just try to get the cheap criminal migrant labor, right? So of course these people are going to say, all I want is a job. Coming across, they're thankful to be in America, essentially. When you flee a country, you know, you get to the place that you're going and they create a work program for you. Of course you're going to say all the right things. Ralph Oropesa, the business manager for Greater Kansas City Building and Construction Trades Council, said the labor market is so tight that travel union members can easily find work in the area, even with their $150 per diem and overtime fees in addition to regular wages. If people have documentation where they can work, then we can absolutely put them to work, he says. This isn't us catering to migrants. This is us catering to people. This is you guys saving a buck on labor. Instead of paying an American that lives in the town what they need to survive, you're willing to hire an implant that's subsidized by the government. Man, how despicable. This just really bothers me that these people think that there is some type of good opportunity going on here when really it's the complete opposite. It's a short-term fix to save a buck and keep expensive corporations going, essentially. You're not going to save a dollar as a consumer. It's just the workers at the business you frequent aren't going to be your neighbors anymore. And while those people steal the jobs from the kids as they come into adulthood, more and more people should realize that this is a bad thing. It's not going away, just like any government program. You give them an inch, they never give that inch back. So I hope the people of Kansas City really fight against this, but I just don't think it's going to happen. So anyways, guys, I'm just going to wrap it up there. Hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, hit that like button. If you didn't enjoy it, but you appreciate the information, also hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.